my cry. At dark midnight was my cry. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
And good, bright, and beautiful morning. And here we are again. Today, though, we have cattle, corn, and conmen. What do they all have in common? Well, let's find out. We're going to jump into Genesis chapter 41 this morning, and we are starting one of the best sections of Genesis. There's a lot of them, I know, but this one is particularly fun. And we're going to cover the first portion of Genesis chapter 41. So grab your Bibles, grab your notebooks, and be ready to take some notes. Let's get into it. Be right back right after this.
You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
And welcome back. If you do find any value in this content, do me a favor, click like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my content. We are now fully doing shorts every day as well as the long form content every morning at 7 a.m. I technically started at 6:59 so that you've got that minute to grab your stuff, but I start talking basically right at 7 o'clock. So thanks for joining me. Don't forget as well that if you do want to subscribe on Patreon, those details are down below. I don't ask for a lot of Patreon subscribers, and I don't do a whole lot on it, but what I do have on Patreon for the subscribers is I do have access to all of my notes for all of my videos. So if you want to go back and study some on your own and you don't want to have to take down your own notes, you can have access and see all of my notes if you subscribe via Patreon. So let's get into this today and let's get started. Let's turn that off. All right. And let's get into our passage. We are in Genesis chapter 41. We are on verses 1 through 15. So let's see if we can do this. All right. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none of them that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in the ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream, he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee, that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. All right, so that is God's word for us today. And let's get this part started. All right. So where are we at here? Well, we've left Joseph in jail. If you remember, the butler forgot all about him. He's like, forgot all about him. So in our notes today, we're going to start off with verse number 1 talks about the fact that Joseph, after he interprets the dreams for the butler and the baker, a little bit of a recap from last time, after he interprets the dream for the butler and the baker gets his head chopped off, the butler gets restored to buttle for Pharaoh. He is the chief butler, which means he's the food taster, which is a pretty honored position. And he did that just in time for Pharaoh's birthday. But then 2 years go by, 2 whole years. And Joseph is like, hey, when you get out, butler, can you say something to Pharaoh about me and let him know that I'm here and I'm not supposed to be? And butler's like, yeah. What's my dream? Made that promise, but he completely forgot about it. And now 2 years have passed. And Joseph is still being very faithful. He's still sticking to what he knows he should be doing. He's serving faithfully in the jail. Remember, he is in charge of everybody in the jail, like every single last person. So 2 full years passed, and then Pharaoh has a dream. First, he dreams about kine, and then he dreams about corn. Now, let's start out with, first of all, the word kine, because kine is not a common word in American English. The word kine, and you might know what it means, and that's fine if you do, but for those of you that don't know, kine actually means cattle. But it doesn't mean just like, cows or cattle in general. It's actually referring to the cattle that is used. These are the male cattle. These are the ones that are used for beef. These are not your dairy cows. They are specifically cows that are raised to be slaughtered for beef, for food, for sustenance. And these seven cattle, they are just fat and sassy. I mean, that's the only way to say it. They are super fat, sassy, and they are ready to roam. But then all of a sudden, 7 skinny, like super skinny cows come up, and they eat all the fat cows. And they eat. So now imagine, if a skinny cow eats a fat cow, the skinny cow should get fatter, but it doesn't. The skinny cows are so skinny and so lean that they eat up the whole of them. Like, there's nothing left behind. All right. So that's dream number 1. And so first night, Pharaoh's dreaming this dream, and he sees these cows coming up from the river. Oh yeah, those are good looking cows. I like that. Yeah, that's good looking. That's going to be really good beef. And then the lean cows come up. Not so much. Wakes up, he's like, what's that dream about? Well, it's just a dream. Because notice that he doesn't do anything about this. Because if we look at verse 2 through 4 here, it says, the ill-favored and lean-flavored kine did eat up. So Pharaoh awoke. And we go right into the next verses. We go right into verse 5, and it says, and he slept and dreamed the second time. So the first dream did not get Pharaoh's attention. And that's kind of important to remember. So Pharaoh dreamed about the kine or the cattle, and then he dreamed about corn. And again, comes up with these really fat corn. I mean, it says rank and good. Now, in American English, we usually use the word rank to refer to something that smells poorly, but that's not the word that's being used here. The word that's being used here that is rank, it means it's ranked as in, it's ranked up as in it is of a high rank or of a high quality. This is ranked corn in that it has a ranking, like it has a rating of it's a high rated corn. And so he's saying here, this corn was rank and it was good. It was like really top notch, really good quality corn. And behold, the 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind. Now remember that Egypt had a river. It has the River Nile. It's always had the River Nile right next to it. And so because of the Nile River, which is a very fertile river. I mean, it's very like the Nile Valley and the Nile, like if you're along the Nile River, it is lush, it is beautiful. It is not like every other part in the Middle East. There are certain portions, and quite frankly, every portion of the Middle East that has water, that's the key. Because if you have water, you have good things. You can grow crops, and your crops can feed your cattle and can feed your animals, and that's what you want. And so Egypt has always had some pretty good success because they are right along the Nile, but they are quite aware, and they are like kind of the entrance. They are the first part of Africa, basically. Like you cross into Egypt, you're now in Africa. Anything below that is Africa, or considered to be Africa. And it's like the entrance to a whole nother world. What is Egypt? Egyptians did not consider themselves to be Eastern. And out of the east, so basically right across the Nile River, though, you've got the bottom portion of Israel/Yemen right there where the Ishmaelites and the Midianites are living right now. And some of the Israelites, but mostly the Israelites are up north of this. So the sons are further north. But right past that little small section is a massive, massive desert. All the way over to where modern day Iraq. All right. And so this whole section. So when you have a wind out of the east, what it's saying is that the winds out of the east were harsh. They were hot. They were deserty. So it's like if you were to say that there was a wind out of the east wind sprung up at them. An east wind was never a good thing. It was always considered something that dried everything out. So unless things were overly soaked, which of course they're not so much in that region of the world, unless everything's overly flooded and soaked, an east wind is not a good thing. It's a bad thing. And it says here in verse 7, and the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 ranked and full. Like these, imagine one stalk though that has 7 ears of corn that are all gorgeous and beautiful. And now a second stalk pops up and it's all thin and nasty. Now, we don't know exactly how they ate them, but dreams can be a little screwy sometimes, right? I mean, have you ever had a dream like that where you wake up and you go, wow, that made zero sense? But Pharaoh's not really dumb. Like he sees right here, he's like, wait a second. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. He's like, wait a second. I had this dream about these cows, these cattle. And then I had this dream about the corn, and both of them were fat being consumed by thin, and both of them were 7 and 7. What's that about? Like, that's obviously something like this dream is, I'm a bit troubled about this. So what does he do? He calls all the wise men and magicians. It says it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And then Pharaoh told him his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. All right, so let's talk about, first of all, who are and what are. So the wise men would have been the scientists of the day. The wise men would have been the ones who were wise enough to make good choices scientifically, and the magicians would have been the astrologers. When he's talking about magicians, he's not actually talking about people who perform magic as we know it today. It's not that kind of magic. It's soothsayers, spiritual people who are trying to divine or divinate, as the term is used, basically contact the divine. So this would be like your gypsies. This would be in our modern idea, your fortune tellers. But these guys would have had a little bit more rank because they would have been able, they're actually, to be honest, they're really the con men of the time that were able to be very insightful into human behavior. So they would be able to guess what people were doing. And that made them seem like they were magic, or made them seem like they were like they had some insight that went beyond normal life. So there would have been two forms of magician. One would have been the con men who were just, able to kind of like read people really well. The other form of magician would have been the ones who were like the soothsayers and the fortune tellers. And those would have been the ones that would have been doing things that would like contacting demons and devils and speaking with them and actually reaching the spirit realm. If you don't believe in the devil and demons, then you're probably in a wrong place right now, because as Christians, it is very important that we understand there is that fight that in the New Testament talks about. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So there is a form of the spirit world that does make contact with humanity. It's wickedness, but it doesn't mean that they don't do it. It doesn't mean that it's not real. It's why my husband and I have had discussions about this. We've talked about like ghosts. Are ghosts real? I think that sometimes ghosts are not real, in that they are not actually the ghost of of people think they are. But I do think that they are an iteration of demons coming to deceive, because the thing that Satan wants to do is deceive us and lead us astray and lead us away from God. And so these magicians of the time in Egypt, they would have been some of these soothsayers, some of these fortune tellers, some of these people who reach the wicked side of divinity, not divinity as in God's divinity, but who reach the wickedness. So Pharaoh's got these, and most kings of that time had people who were either spiritual advisors or magicians who would kind of magic up. So we've got con men, we've got, soothsayers and fortune tellers and things like that. And we've got the wise men there, who are the scientists of the day. And there was a lot of really good science in Egypt. So don't get me wrong, the scientists, the engineers, essentially what Pharaoh has done here is he's brought together his think tank. He's like, okay, I need the smartest men in my kingdom, because I don't understand what this dream means. Let's bring them all in. And what does it say here in verse 8? It says, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. So he calls all the wise men and magicians, and none of them knew what was going on. They're like, nope. And then all of a sudden in verse 9, the butler goes, oh, Pharaoh, man, I got to tell you about something. Pharaoh starts listening. And, well, actually, first Pharaoh says that, well, then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. When he says, I remember my faults this day, he's saying, oh, crap, I forgot my promise. Oh, I just remembered. I was supposed to say something to you about Joseph, or about this guy. Let me tell you, Pharaoh, about this guy. So then he goes on and he says, remember when you put me, like 2 years ago, just before your birthday, do you remember when you put me and the baker in jail because you got mad at all of your servants and you just threw us all into jail? You weren't sure what to do with us. Remember that? Well, when I was there for those 3 days, there was also the baker with me, and there was this Hebrew guy, this Hebrew youth. He does refer to him as young. So he's a young man, a Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him our dreams, and he interpreted us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. He says, this is actually what happened. He told me I was going to get restored, that I was going to be your butler again. And you did. You brought me back. And he told the baker he was going to get hanged. And guess what? You did. You hanged the baker. It's like it was actually what he did. And he heard the dreams and he knew what they meant. And Pharaoh's like, okay, all right. So the butler tells what happened to him in prison. That's verses 10 through 13 here. Pharaoh sends for Joseph, and Joseph knows he needs to be cleaned up. This is, I think, a really interesting passage. And a lot of times people kind of completely overlook this. A lot of people in Christianity nowadays who are like very anti presenting yourself in an appropriate manner to appropriate authority. There are people who are in the church that say things like, well, It doesn't matter what I look like. It shouldn't matter if I try to clean myself up or dust myself. I should no, that doesn't matter. None of that matters. You should just accept me as I am, no matter how bad I look. Hold on a second. If you are being brought before a major authority figure, is that the attitude that you think you should take? Like if you had a chance to be introduced to the president, and maybe the president isn't a good example if you're not a supporter of the current president, but pick a president that you do admire, right? If you had a chance to meet that president the president you most admire, would you go in your sloppy every day and say, well, if he's a decent president, a decent human being, I can come dressed however I want? I mean, we've seen this even this year when President Zelensky went to the White House and he was like kind of like told, no, you need to wear a suit next time. You want to come to the White House, you show respect to this office. It's not about, and a lot of people think that's about Trump saying, you got to show respect to me. I don't actually think it's so much about that, but we can disagree on that. I do think, however, that one of the things that Trump wants is he wants America restored to being a respected nation. And so in his mind, when Zelensky came and didn't even wear a suit, like every other world leader, let's just point this out. Every other world leader wears their finest garb, whether it's a suit or if they're Middle Eastern, they're wearing their best robes, like their most elegant, their most whatever robes. And so he was a little bit like, oh, come on. Like, you're just playing at theater here. Like, let's dress up. And Joseph, but what's interesting is the Bible supports this idea that when we are going before somebody who is a dignitary, we should make an effort. We should not go right in sloppy. Keep in mind, Joseph is here in prison. He's been in prison for years now. Definitely 2 years plus the time before the butler and the baker got thrown in, which was probably at least another 2 to 3 years. Because keep in mind, in the time that he's there, he gets put in charge of the prison. So that's not going to just happen overnight for the prison guards to trust him so much to put him in charge. So Joseph has been there a few years. He's probably been there maybe up to even 5 years that he's been in prison. We don't know for sure when everything happened, but we do know that he's been in prison for at least 2 years and 3 days, and obviously longer than that to have gained the status he did. But even though he was put in charge of the prison and he had the status that he had within the prison, it says when Pharaoh brought for him, he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. It's an interesting thing that Pharaoh sends for Joseph, and Joseph, rather than just, going right away, he understands he's going before the Pharaoh, the leader of the land, the top guy, and he needs to look presentable. So he gets shaved and he puts on his best clothing, make sure his clothing is as clean as possible. And he puts on his, whatever he has that is the best that he has. May not be all that great, but at least it's clean and it's fresh. He's not been in the jail with it on for a week or two or whatever. Nope. He shaves, he showers, he cleans up, changes his clothes because he wants to be respectful to the Pharaoh. And remember, this Pharaoh is an ungodly man. He's not in any way a Hebrew, nor does he, recognize God. But Pharaoh says, this is the head of the country that I'm in. I need to show respect to him. So he does. And verse 15, Pharaoh goes, okay, this is why you're here. I had this dream. And then there was another dream. And I turned to all my guys, and none of them had any idea. And I've been told that you're a guy who knows how to interpret dreams. I want your help. I've been told you're the guy to call. So let's see what you've got. The reality is, what's he got? Well, he's going to tell us in verse 16. Spoiler alert for tomorrow. He says, and Joseph answered, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer. Pharaoh's like, all right, you're the guy. Come on, give me my interpretation. And Joseph goes, it's not me. It's not me. And that's where we're going to leave for today. We're going to do a little bit of a cliffhanger. And tomorrow we are going to go into the second section. We're actually dividing chapter 41 into 3 sections because I really wanted to break this down. And I mean, we've already been live. We've already been here for like 25 minutes. So definitely don't want to go on to the whole next section, which is very big. Didn't want to rush into it. So tomorrow we will be in back in chapter 41. We'll start with verse 16, actually, like technically, and we will be back there and we'll be doing this. So I look forward to seeing you. Once again, though, if you do find any value in this content, do me a favor, click like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my content. And, you know, I do really want to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts so far? What do you think of this butler who forgot all about his promise to Joseph? What do you think about the Pharaoh? What do you think about the magicians? Really want to know what you have to say. So please do me a favor and drop a comment below. I'd love to get your thoughts and definitely love to see where your mind is at on this particular topic. All right. So I will see you tomorrow and we will jump back into chapter 41, verse 16 onward. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and bye for now.
Was my cry at dark midnight, was my cry, give me Jesus.